Star Trek has never been shy of romance. In the original series, Kirk had a new love interest practically every episode. Although, let's be honest, most of those romances were really superficial and mostly motivated by Kirk's primal urge to boldly go where no man has gone before, if you get what I mean. Real heartwarming romance has been a bit harder to come by, but there are plenty of examples of truly beautiful love stories throughout Trek. Star Trek has also begun portraying queer relationships much more explicitly, and by now is showcasing some of the best representations of queer romance in modern sci-fi. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie with Trek Culture, here with the 10 most romantic Star Trek moments. Number 10. Odo destroying a whole society to save Kira. Odo always admired Kira, ever since he first met her on Terok Nor during the Cardassian occupation. He kept his feelings to himself for a long time out of fear for ruining their friendship. We had to wait until Deep Space Nine's 6th season episode His Way for them to finally share their first kiss. However, Kira was aware of Odo's feelings for quite a while. One moment that shows his love is when he literally wiped 8,000 people out of existence just to save her. In the episode Children of Time, the Defiant crew encountered their own descendants on a mysterious planet. They learned that the Defiant would encounter a time anomaly in a couple of days that would disable the ship, send them 200 years into the past, and strand them on the planet. Kira died when the ship went down, but everyone else survived and began new lives. And as the generations went on and the crew began starting families, a whole society of 8,000 people slowly emerged. Odo, however, still remained thanks to his long lifespan, though he was heartbroken by the loss of Kira. The crew was forced to accept their new lives on this alien world to prevent 8,000 people from never existing. However, they didn't get the chance to go through with it because the older version of Odo hacked the ship's flight controls to prevent the crash and Kira's death, causing all of their descendants to be deleted from history. Now, this was undeniably a dark moment for Odo, but it was also quite romantic. His love for Kira was so strong that he was willing to rewrite history and wipe 8,000 people out of existence just to save her life, which then makes their goodbyes in What You Leave Behind even more heartbreaking. Number 9. Riker and Troy's life on Nepenthe. Will Riker and Deanna Troi got married in Star Trek Nemesis, which came out in 2002. A staggering 18 years later, in 2020, we finally got a glimpse of their new life together in the Star Trek Picard episode Nepenthe. Fleeing from Romulans in the first season, Picard and Soji use a Borg spatial trajector to teleport themselves to the planet Nepenthe, the new home of Will, Deanna, and their daughter Kestra Troi Riker. We learned that their firstborn child, Thad, passed away, but aside from the obvious heartbreak of losing him, the family seemed to be doing quite well, enjoying the beautiful planet they called home and the peace and quiet that it afforded them. Fortunately, we also got to see some of Will and Deanna's adventures on the USS Titan in lower decks, but it's also nice to know that they do eventually settle down and relax together. Number 8. Adira reuniting with Gray. Adira and Gray Tal from Discovery are such a cute couple. Adira is human and Gray is a Trill. They were both orphans and met while living aboard a Generation ship searching for Federation headquarters. At some point in his life, Gray was joined with a Trill symbiont named Tal, giving him access to the memories of the symbiont's past hosts and allowing himself to live on through the symbiont when he died. Unfortunately, Gray's death came a lot sooner than he expected. He and Adira were traveling aboard a ship that collided with an asteroid and Gray's body couldn't be saved. However, the Tal symbiont survived and with little time to spare was transferred into the body of Adira, despite a huge stigma against symbionts joining with non-Trill. After the joining, Adira briefly lost all their memories. Eventually, in the episode Forget Me Not, Discovery took them to the Trill homeworld, where Adira was given treatment to connect with the past lives of the symbiont. Inside a strange neural space in their own mind, Adira remembered Gray's joining and the accident that later killed him, before coming face to face with several of Tal's past hosts, including Gray. The two were finally reunited. The memories eventually returned when the past hosts accepted DIRA, and Gray became a living entity inside DIRA's mind that could be interacted with and spoken to. Then, in the episode Choose to Live, he was actually transferred into a physical body created by Dr. Culber using the Sung method. Number 7. George Kirk's goodbye. In the Prime timeline, James Kirk really looked up to his father, George Kirk, and credited him as his inspiration for joining Starfleet. Unfortunately, things went a little bit differently in the timeline of the rebooted films. Right as James's mother Winona was giving birth to him, his parents' ship, the USS Kelvin, was attacked by a Romulan vessel from the future. All hands were evacuated, including Winona and James, but the autopilot was disabled, forcing George to manually fly the Kelvin into the Romulan vessel to prevent them from capturing his crew. George called Winona and said goodbye as he heard the first cries of his newborn son in her arms. He suggested to name the child Jim after Winona's father, then tragically crashed into the Narada, saving everyone in the process. George's last words to Winona in this scene are truly chilling, and Chris Hemsworth gave a performance that truly showcased what kind of a man James's father was, in both universes. Number 6. RIKER'S fight for SOREN. The Next Generation episode The Outcast may have failed in its goal of bringing gay representation into Star Trek, the story focusing way more on themes of gender identity, but it still gave us quite a compelling love story between Riker and the Janai named Soren. Soren identified as female, but her species were androgynous, and all Janai were taught from birth that gender and sex were disgusting aspects of more primitive life forms. Because Soren identified as female, she was forced to undergo conversion therapy by her government to forcefully change her identity. Riker was forbidden by Captain Picard from interfering with Janai politics, but snuck to the planet's surface to rescue her. Unfortunately, when Riker arrived, the procedure had already been completed and all aspects of Soren's female identity were purged from her mind. Riker was willing to sacrifice his career to save this woman that he loved. His heartbreak when he realized that Soren had been changed against her will was devastating for him and tragically romantic. Number 5. Beckett MARINER'S true self. Beckett and Jennifer's relationship has come a long way since season 1, and one of their most romantic moments came in the episode Hear All, Trust Nothing. While getting to know Jennifer's friends, Beckett toned down her personality to avoid making Jennifer feel uncomfortable. They got more and more unbearable throughout the night, telling lame stories and performing interpretive dance. Eventually, the power went out and Jennifer's friends started completely losing it. At this point, Jennifer asked Beckett why she was being so polite with them and explained that she was looking forward to Beckett tearing her friends a new one. Happy that Jennifer loved the real her, Beckett got to live out her fantasy of stunning all of Jennifer's friends with a phaser to stop them from screaming and wasting oxygen while the power was out. Realizing it was a bad look to be the only non-stunned people in the room, they kissed, held each other, and Beckett stunned them both to sleep. Number 4. SAREK'S true feelings for Amanda. Vulcans are very confusing romantically. They claim to have no emotional connection with their partners, yet still have a strong bond and care deeply for one another. At the end of the original series episode Journey to Babel, Spock teased his mother Amanda by asking his father Sarek why he chose to marry her. Sarek responded, "At the time, it seemed the logical thing to do." This is a typical Vulcan response, but we now know that there is a lot more to their marriage than logic alone. In the 2009 Star Trek film, we saw a moment in Spock's childhood when he asked his father the same question of why he chose to marry Amanda. Once again, Sarek explained the logic of the decision. He served as the Vulcan ambassador to Earth, so marrying a human was mostly a political statement. However, later in the film, after Vulcan was destroyed and Amanda died, Sarek spoke to him again and clarified by saying, "You asked me once why I married your mother. I married her because I loved her." In this moment of grief, Sarek revealed that he was not able to suppress the part of him that loved Amanda. Though he allowed logic to control every other aspect of his life, his marriage to Amanda was born out of emotion. Number 3. TORRES confessing her love. The relationship between B'Elanna Torres and Tom Paris in Star Trek Voyager was really unexpected, but welcome. B'Elanna always had a no-nonsense personality, and Tom loved being goofy and enjoying his dorky passions. Yet the two of them became incredibly close, and their daughter, Miral, was born just before Voyager reached Earth. Their relationship officially began in the episode Day of Honor. In this episode, Tom was trying to encourage B'Elanna to embrace her Klingon heritage by celebrating the Klingon holiday, the Day of Honor. B'Elanna was unimpressed, and Tom's custom Day of Honor holodeck program only made her more upset. Later, the two of them left in a shuttle to retrieve Voyager's lost warp core, but their ship was destroyed and they became stranded, floating in space in EV suits. As their oxygen slowly depleted while waiting for Voyager, Tom and B'Elanna had time to reflect on their relationship and what they truly wanted from each other. Running out of breath, B'Elanna finally admitted to Tom that she loved him. They then passed out, uncertain if they would awaken again. How romantic. Number 2. Picard's duets with Darren. Captain Picard rarely showed his romantic side in The Next Generation. Of course, he and Dr. Crusher had feelings for each other, but their responsibilities aboard the Enterprise kept them from pursuing their love. Although they did come close a few times in episodes like Attached, and they even got married and divorced in the alternate timeline in All Good Things, but I guess we'll have to wait until season 3 of Star Trek Picard to find out what possibly happened with their relationship in the Prime timeline. Picard's most romantic scene was actually between him and Lieutenant Commander Nella Darren in the Next Generation episode Lessons. Darren came aboard the Enterprise to serve as the head of Stellar Sciences, and the two quickly bonded over their shared love of music. Darren visited Picard in his quarters and noticed that he was playing his Resican flute. Picard was initially reluctant to play in front of Darren, but he soon opened up. The two of them began playing duets on a regular basis, with Picard on the flute and Darren playing piano. Darren brought Picard to Jeffrey's Tube 25, apparently the most acoustically perfect spot on the ship, and Picard taught her to play a folk song from his other life. This moment hit so deep because Picard rarely opened up about his experience with anyone. After his trauma in the Inner Light, he went right back to normal life, but Lessons gave him some much needed closure. Now, of course, their relationship didn't work out, but their duets in the Jeffrey's Tube is one of the most romantic moments in Star Trek history. Number 1. Kirk reuniting with the love of his life. Captain Kirk is one of the most famous sex icons in the galaxy, but all of his romantic exploits throughout his career were nothing compared to his love for the Enterprise. Of course, every captain loves their ship, but for Kirk it went a little bit deeper. Remember that laughably long scene of establishing shots of the Enterprise from the motion picture? Well, the novelization of that film, written by Gene Roddenberry, went into more detail on Kirk's thoughts as he approached his beloved ship. Now, a big thank you to Jessie Gender on YouTube for resurfacing this excerpt in her video, Sex in Star Trek, Exploring Gene Roddenberry's Sexual Frontier. As Kirk first catches a glimpse of the Enterprise, the novel states, "She was complete now. Gracefully whole." Kirk searched for some phrase, some description that expressed what he was feeling. Was she like a lovely woman? No, at this moment she was more than that to him. A fable? A myth come alive? Yes, that was it. She was as Aphrodite must have been when Zeus first raised her up from the sea, naked and shockingly beautiful. This little scene confirms what we probably all suspected. To Kirk, the Enterprise was so much more than just a starship. She was the love of his life, and he adored every single part of her, from her warp core to her torpedo bays. And that concludes our list. If you think we missed some good examples, then do let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell so you never miss a Trek Culture video ever again. Also, head over to Twitter and follow us there, and Instagram as well. And I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. I've been Ellie with Trek Culture. I hope you have a wonderful day, and remember, to boldly go where no one has gone before.